I'm Jen. I'm the kind of old autistic lady. And I came across an article today that I really relate to. And so I want to share it with everyone. I don't know how to pronounce this word right here. I believe it's a Danish word because that organization started in Denmark. And this website is to the Canada version of that organization. As you can see from the title, Why Your Autistic Employee May Over-Explain When Giving Instructions. Boy, do I ever wish I had seen this article a long time ago and known that I was autistic a long time ago. It would have saved me a lot of headache. I'm not an instructor anymore. I used to be a teacher, but I very routinely gave feedback to people as part of prior jobs, really throughout my career. And when I would write up any sort of evaluation, I tended to go into a lot of detail and also write why I thought certain behaviors were positive or needed improvement. And I continued to do that in other contexts. And I didn't understand why sometimes people got frustrated with me. Not only, I thought at the time it was more to get to the point, but I think in hindsight, after reading this, that they probably thought that I was explaining things that didn't need explaining, which is unfortunate because especially when I was trying to help people, not so much customers on the phone, I'm talking about feedback in other contexts that I would give to other individuals. I think that I tended to give a lot of reasons, and I always want to give reasons for why I do things. And the older I get and the more, frankly, therapy I have, I realize that other people don't tend to do that I come across in my day-to-day life. That there is just sort of an assumed motivation or an assumed logic behind things. And I don't know if it's a matter of being misunderstood over time or if it's just truly autism. And one of the points that this article blog post makes a few different times is that autistic employees tend to train other people the way that they themselves learn. And of course, having been a former educator, I know that there are a lot of different learning styles and different modalities that instructors need to use. However, I think that for me, it was a light bulb moment today. And I hope you read the article. It's really geared towards speaking to employers about having autistic employees. Really, the entire set of blog posts on the site have that bent. And the organization themselves hires a lot of autistic people and has as their mission helping autistic people succeed in the workplace. I have no connection with them. This is just something I ran across today. But I really like their blog. There's a lot of really great articles on there, not just this one. So it makes me wonder if now in my current life, when I'm not necessarily giving feedback to people because my job is something completely different now, if I still go into detail or state things that other people would find obvious. I hope in my sort of, I think, I'm so recently diagnosed that I wonder if I annoy people. And I know that there's an element of internalized ableism to thinking that way because I should just be free to be myself and do the best job that I can do. And if anybody has a problem with that, I can address it at the time. That's easier to say in hindsight. But this article was just really fantastic about helping employers know how to coach somebody who's autistic in that situation, but also how to coach a person who's neurotypical in that situation. And one of the things that it said was a good idea, which I thought was fantastic. The example it had been giving was somebody that was training another employee who was a longtime employee of the organization in some new software, but that person had been in the role for a long time. And in the example, the autistic employee, the trainer, was starting from square one. How to create a username, how to create a password, basic terminology within the system. And in this scenario, the neurotypical person just kept saying, I know how to do all that. I've used software similar to this for the last 20 years. Just, get to the point of what the stuff I need to know. And the autistic employee in the scenario had said, and I'm paraphrasing, but so what do you need to know? And they didn't mean to sound condescending or sarcastic, but the neurotypical employee in that situation that the article brought up was offended and basically said, well, I can see you're upset. There's no need to be sarcastic. Let's talk about this later. And when it was talking about coaching strategies for both parties in the situation, one of the things it said employers can do that might be helpful is to still have the autistic employee go through the thought process of all of those steps. It was discussing and explaining to employers how autistic employees can have a hard time if their train of thought is broken or if they're not going in like a logical sequential order of things, to just jump in the middle, how it can frazzle people. And so it basically said that the coaching of the autistic person, that if the autistic employee still needs that they can go through on their own prior to this setting with the coworker who's neurotypical, and can go ahead and go through all those steps, process them all, whether it's writing them down, talking to themselves, talking to a camera, whatever that autistic employee needs, and then giving coaching for the neurotypical employee to talk about how just take the person's words at face value and not read into them, so that if they do ask, well, what do you need to know? So that they understand that the question is not to be snippy or sarcastic, but rather to say, okay, I need background about how much you do know, how much you don't know, because I'm not in your shoes. So it can help to facilitate that conversation. And I thought that both tips on both sides are really fantastic. I'm really glad that the article focused on both sides of the conversation. And I could see myself doing this, especially in situations where I do have a little bit more background about what people do and don't know. If I ever step back into a training capacity or a coaching capacity, although I will say in a coaching capacity, there is a little bit of a difference. When I was a coach, I used to tell people right off the bat, hey, I'm a really wordy person and I write a lot. And it's all with the purpose of giving feedback so that I can shine a light when you're doing really fantastic things. And if there are things that need improvement, I can not only explain what the correct behavior is, but also the methodology or the reasons for why I'm taking that approach. Because if anybody's ever worked in a customer service type capacity, especially in a contact center and with a technology background, a lot of times there's more than one way to get to the same result. There's more than one way to troubleshoot something, and there's more than one line of thought in troubleshooting. Sometimes you'll find that if something is not super straightforward, you can listen to two agents have conversations with the customers, have the same problem, but they take very different approaches. And sometimes you'll see positives and negatives to the two approaches as you listen to those, because I was a quality analyst. I listened to phone calls and then coached on them. And maybe one approach is more efficient than the other. Maybe one approach took a more teaching mode with the customer so that they could be more self-sufficient. Maybe one mode was more reading the customer to find out, okay, this customer just wants to get off the phone and they want their issue resolved. They don't want to be educated on what to do the next time. So you get to hear all kinds of different scenarios, different troubleshooting methodologies, and different personalities on the phone in a job like I had. And so this article really gave me some good background, because I'm absolutely sure that some of the people that I used to coach were neurotypical, and that some of the people were neurodivergent, but maybe not autistic. And then, of course, that some were autistic. And so having all of those pieces in my back pocket about things I can do prior to coming to the conversation so that we can keep the conversation on point is a really great idea. And I'm all for it. And I love articles like this. I'm definitely going to continue to read their blog, as well as to look at if there are other countries that have their own chapters of this organization, to see if they have blogs as well, because it seemed really straightforward and really good ideas, especially on the side of explaining to the employer where the employee is coming from who is autistic. So I'm going to put the URL in the description so that you can read it for yourself. I'd like to hear from you what ideas you have, either if you've been in a management role or as an employee, of things that can help when you're going into a disproportionate amount of details or steps compared to what the neurotypical person, or maybe neurodivergent person who's not autistic, or autistic person, because we're all different as autistic people, right? What any tips and strategies you have. I would love to make this a conversation where we learn from each other and learn about different experiences from each other. So it's not just about my experience and what I'm saying. But do like and subscribe if you're enjoying the video. And again, I'm that kind of old autistic lady, and I'm happy to have been able to share this article with you today. Take care.